Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm your host for the first hour, Tim Hayes. We're here for 2 hours today. Today is Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. And I'll be here for the first hour, and hopefully Michael and or Jeannie will pick up for the second hour. And we will do our best to be of service as we try to introduce people to and teach them the nature of and the ways to use powerful tools for improving the quality of their life, their emotions, their relationships. And gratefully, we're able to make these tools available for free at whyagain.org. That website on the main page has a red and white bullseye. If you click on that bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner that says Start Here, it'll take you to a page where you can download Chapter 24 of Dr. Rice's book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And you can download the latest version of the current 7-step reality management wake-up sheet or worksheet process. You can download a host of audio files of shows like this one where people have been stepped through the process. They serve as a tutorial to explain to people how the process actually looks and works when real-life people have called in the internet show asking for support with real problems. And as I mentioned, there are an abundant number, maybe 16 or so audio files where people have been stepped through a worksheet process. So we're hoping people will go there and take advantage of that. It's just the beginning of the tools that are available. We have on that same website, on that same initial page, if you scroll down, you can get access to a host of other tools. Dr. Rice was talking about one of them yesterday. He kind of backed into it when he was doing some work with somebody. And it's the codependence to interdependence worksheet, which understands that every time I give advice to another human being, it's actually my mind trying to get me to see what I need to be doing. And that codependence to interdependence worksheet is available for free. The mind goal management worksheet is available for free. The 3 early memories of conflict worksheet is available for free. The list goes on. These tools, powerful tools for helping me understand and build in my understanding that my life, my experience of life moment to moment, is created inside me. And if I get educated as to how that process works, and then I find some tools like the ones I've made available at whyagain.org, I can actually start uncovering the parts of my mind I've been hiding from myself. And once I've uncovered those parts of my mind, then I can, with that direct access to them, I can start changing them. I can start changing them in ways that will serve me better. And that's the point of this work, for me to increase my self-knowledge. Guy Finley talks about it so clearly, and he says, there is no such thing as bad self-knowledge. As a matter of fact, the primary source of anything in my life that I say that I dislike, that makes me angry or sad or hurt or creates any kind of a psychological pain or upset, the primary source of that is what I have yet to learn about myself. So with that as our guide, we offer these tools to help people learn more about themselves. Self-knowledge is the actual goal of all good, all true spiritual teachings. So that's what we're here to support people in doing. We have a call-in number so people can call in and ask a question. The call-in number is 999-3581. And if you press 1, that'll put a little question mark up by your phone number, and it'll let me know you've got a comment or a question or a request for support or a testimonial, and we'll have a conversation. When people call in with a question or a comment or ask for support, it really up-levels the quality of these shows. So we're grateful every time somebody does that, and we're hoping someone does that every show. We had our support group in Woodstock, Illinois last night, and we had 4 people there plus me, and we had somebody who's only been there. It was their second time in a group session. And because this person was so new to the process, we decided to go back to the basics and play the first hour of a 4-hour audio by video by Dr. Michael Rice, the title of which is, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Now that is the core lecture out of the 14 or 15 or maybe 16 different videos and lectures that Dr. Rice makes available. And as one of the core lectures, it presents a lot of different material that over the years has been broken out into other separate 2-hour lectures or talks or videos. And this particular recording was done, I think it was back in 2014, and it was actually done in Woodstock, Illinois, when Dr. Rice had been to Woodstock at the Unity Spiritual Center there to do a whole week of talks. And it's one of the times when Dr. Rice was really on and the flow was going, and so it's highly recommended. And again, I can recommend that because that particular hour of the video is available free off of the YouTube channel. So if you go to whyagain.org, whyagain.org, and you click on the link for the YouTube channel, then you just either scroll down or you search for, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And you'll get a whole series of titles because they have uploaded some of the older versions of that lecture where Dr. Rice was, probably 30 years younger. But there's also the full first hour of the talk he gave when he was in Woodstock. So that's recommended as a very nice intro to some of the underlying concepts in this work. And in that first hour, he doesn't get all the way to discussing the reality management wake-up sheet or worksheet process, but he does get some very flowing, deep-reaching concepts laid out so people can begin to question the fundamental things we need to start observing. Because if I keep buying what I've been taught by my culture, then I'm going to keep approaching my life the way I always have, and I'm just going to get more tomorrows like my yesterdays. And the point of this work is for me to step into my experience of life as a co-creator, to figure out what I actually have the ability to make substantive change in my life. And then, with the blessing of these tools available for free, I can start applying these tools and making those substantive changes. So that's what we're here to support people in doing, and we hope that this work is useful and that people have comments or questions, and they'll press 1, and they call in at 563-999-3581. I had a person who was commenting the other day that they noticed that I didn't post an audio from last Thursday's Mind Shifter support group. And the Thursday Mind Shifter support group happens in my office in Crystal Lake, but we also have gone the extra mile to make that available on the internet. And so you can check in with us on Thursdays from 6:30 to 9 and actually listen into that support group experience, and or most times listen to the archive recording, because when it's being made available on the internet like that, a recording is made. And so just in case there's anybody else out there wondering, Thursday's recording hasn't been edited and uploaded yet because life has been busy, blessedly busy, as I like to say. And it was interesting because the way the system is set up now, I don't get to know who's listening to the recordings, just like on the Mind Shifters Radio podcast you're listening to now. I don't get to know how many people listen to it on archives or replays. So we just hold the intention that what we are doing can be of service, that it is beneficial. And then we just keep doing the next right thing, which is what we encourage others to do. We encourage people to step into the use of the tools, even if they don't get a dramatic, radical transformation for the positive in their life every time they do a worksheet. So we are here to help people understand that the conditioning of my culture, as strong, as powerful, as detailed and insidious as it has been, is not something I'm going to be able to change with the flip of a switch. And yet, with the proper tools, it can change. Dr. Rice likes to tell the story of the man who got angry because he saw an advertisement for driveway demolition or replacement. And he called the number and he said, "I'd like to sue you for false advertising." And the man said, "What do you mean false advertising?" And the man on the phone who had called said, "Well, because you're saying you can remove a driveway, and I happen to know that that's not possible, that it can't be done." And the second man said, "Well, excuse me, sir, but that's my job. We do it all the time." And he says, "No, I'm absolutely certain that it can't be done." And the man says, "Well, how do you know it can't be done?" He says, "Well, because I've owned this property, and I have this business here, and we've got this driveway, and it needs to be replaced. And for the last 5 years, every second half of the lunch hour, I send every employee out in the parking lot, and I give them fresh toothpicks every time, and I tell them, dig up that driveway with those toothpicks and get rid of it. And it doesn't work. It's been 5 years, and they haven't made a dent in the driveway." And the guy on the phone kind of chuckles and says, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I hate to tell you this, but we've got bulldozers, and if you tell me you want your driveway removed, the next day it'll be gone." And of course, the point for Dr. Rice in that story is, if you have the proper tool, there are amazing things you can do. If you don't have the proper tool, you can work for decades without getting decent results. And that's a part of why Dr. Michael Rice and his wife Jeannie have worked so tirelessly to make these powerful and effective tools available absolutely for free. And when I say free, I mean you don't even have to get your name put on a mailing list. There's no strings attached. If you go to that website and you click on the link, you get to download the PDF file and start printing it out. Or if you don't want to do that, you can go to your app store and type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, And within minutes, you can have completely free and private access to the world's first ancient Aramaic forgiveness app. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. Go there and take full advantage of this, the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice, and the power of these tools. These tools, when applied, have been improving the quality of my life dramatically for the better part of 15 years. And one of the things that amazes me is there seems to be no end to the depth of the work I can do when I just trust the process and keep using the tools. I was doing some work earlier this morning on my own set of emotional triggers and upsets, and had connections that went back to when I was 29 years old. They went back to when I was 8 years old and 1 year old. And the theme that connected those 3 years and dynamics in my life was powerful and consistent from age 1 through age 8 through age 29. Now, from a conscious logical perspective, sitting in my own office as an adult, there's no way I would ever draw that conclusion that these dynamics from age 1, age 8, and age 29 were similar, were related in any way. And yet, with the use of the tools, I have a tremendous clarity about what those themes are and how they're connected, and how useful it is for me to become consciously aware of that. Again, one of the ways I get there is I just directly apply the tool. I don't use my conscious logical mind to try and sort that out. There is no other therapy technique I know that would help me move from, within a matter of an hour or so, move through life events, energy downloads, emotional impressions, and make connections between age 1, age 8, and age 29 in my life. And yet, when I give up trying to figure it out at the conscious logical level, I figure out what the goal is in my life today, in this moment, what the negative emotional state is in my life today, the thoughts I'm using to create that. When I map that out and then cancel it, it becomes evident, abundantly clear, how those things are connected. And they're connected only in my mind, in my body's energy system. It isn't necessarily that true that it would make sense for any other human being, but it makes very good sense to me. And when I see that, when I can get direct access to it and soften and breathe into it, and then I can continue to apply the tools, and I can literally dismantle the effects that those energies have had on my life since age 1, age 8, and age 29. So that's just a part of why I'm excited to be sharing these tools, and what we're hoping that people will step into the use of and take advantage of, make use of on a regular basis, because that's not a one and off deal. Those kinds of connections that kind of improvement in my functioning I've been experiencing for 15 years. And my hope is to continue that process and those benefits for many years to come. So if that piques your interest, if there's a comment or a question about any of that, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you press 1, we'll have a conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind today? What's a comment or a question? What's a support we can be? What's a testimonial you have about the work? 563-999-3581. Press 1. We'll have a conversation. I had somebody in my office earlier today who was struggling with honesty and had uncovered the realization that their family lifestyle mode of operating was that it isn't safe to be honest. And part of that conclusion that it isn't safe to be honest was derived from the experience that whenever someone was honest within that family, they would get attacked. So if that's my situation, if I grew up in a family where every time I was honest or somebody else was honest, they got attacked, it doesn't matter how many spiritual books I read that tell me I'm completely safe and honesty is the best policy and the only way out is through. It doesn't really matter, because my life experience is telling me and will be generating that intense emotional response that says the truth is this is not safe. So what I have to do to get to the point where I can convince myself that it's not only safe but actually productive to be truthful is I have to find an environment. Sometimes it's a community, sometimes it's working with a friend, another friend, a family member, or a therapist, but I have to find an environment where I am introduced to life situations that help me demonstrate the safety. And little by little, as I demonstrate the safety and apply the tools, I build life experience, and that's the only way to overcome other life experience. I can't talk my way out of deep emotionally based knowings from my past, from my previous experiences in this life. And yet, I can absolutely move into different situations with the trust and respect of important people, where I can experience myself as being safe in situations that I used to know in my heart of hearts were not safe. Well, in little incremental ways, that's what we're hoping people will do with the reality management wake-up sheet or worksheet process. Every time I do a worksheet process and I give up everything I think I know and I cancel everything I think I want and I simply ask to be shown from some higher, more integrated, more wise field of energy that you might call a mind or the Christ mind or God or light or love or your unconscious, what you call it doesn't really matter. But every time I do that and I feel a shift, I've demonstrated to myself, you know what? It was okay to give up what I believed in. to move into direct observation, to ask to be shown, rather than hold on to a past belief. And when I do that incrementally, it begins to build momentum. It begins to build the life experience within me. And that life experience within me is the only thing that we know of that can help me shift, integrate, transform, transmute previous life experiences that I've downloaded into an unknowing. I know this to be true. I know that to be true. We had someone talking about something similar last night in the group, saying, here's the belief I was fed as a child. You're ugly or you're stupid. Pick one of them. Well, after a while of being fed that negative conclusion about myself or somebody else, it doesn't really matter whether it's about me or somebody else, but after I've been fed that long enough by the people in my life that I look up to for survival, whether they're parents or grandparents, it's the most natural thing going for me to accept that as a truth and step into the experience of it, to have life events that I use as validation for that truth. And then I grow up, quote, knowing, close quotes, that I'm ugly or that I'm stupid. And I've got that felt sense within me of that negative assessment. It becomes a truth. It becomes an emotional knowing within me. Well, once that happens, it doesn't matter how many people that I meet or see, or as I grow up and I change physically, it doesn't matter how close I get to the idea of the perfect appearance as far as the culture is concerned, or as far as any of my friends or loved ones is concerned. It doesn't matter how many times people tell me that I'm okay, or I'm attractive, or I'm beautiful, or I'm intelligent. That does not shift that internal, emotionally based knowing that I carry with me. The only thing we know of that will shift that internal, emotionally based knowing is another internal, emotionally based knowing. A knowledge from lived experience that contradicts other knowledge from lived experience. Well, how do I get to have an experience that's going to contradict? Well, the fact of the matter is, most of us have the contradictory experiences, but they're hidden in the part of our mind that we are not willing to look at. Then the question becomes, okay, well, how do I find the hidden part of my mind? The answer is, I do the worksheet process. The answer is, I do a reality management worksheet or wake-up sheet, or I step into a journaling practice, a targeted journaling practice like the Mind Shifter tool. And I let myself tap into the power of the laws of resonance and the power of my willingness to step into a process that may not reveal exactly what I'm looking for in the first or 15th or 37th iteration, but incrementally it will take me to the place where I access a knowing within me that contradicts a negative belief that I'm ugly, that I'm stupid, etc. And once I tap into that, there will have been some time in my life where I had a felt sense of being smart, or being attractive, or being loving, or being useful. And once I tap into that, I want to have it down on paper because I've been doing the journaling, or I want to have it down on paper because I've been doing the reality management wake-up sheet or worksheet process. And then I want to be able to routinely go back and contrast that internal knowing life lesson with the negative. And the more I do that back and forth, moving from one truly felt sense of this belief in my life to one that contradicts it back and forth, eventually my mind is going to make sense of this disconnect. And it's going to, you could call it heal, you could call it integrate. It's going to dismantle the false beliefs that had been a part of my energy system as a knowing, as a life experience that was irrefutable. But since it was false, it's susceptible to correction. And with the application of the tools, that can happen. And we see it happen on a regular basis. Sometimes it happens in 1 or 2 worksheets. Sometimes it happens with 2 or 3 hours of targeted journaling. And sometimes it doesn't happen until weeks have passed after I've done a stack of worksheets or after I've done 3 hours of journaling. So all I'm trying to promote here is the fact that there are hundreds of people, probably thousands after the years that Dr. Rice has spent with this, but at least hundreds of people within this community who have had the experience that these tools work. They're effective, they're efficient, they're accessible, and for the most part, they're absolutely free. So we're encouraging people to go to whyagain.org and download the tools and put them to use, and then call us with any questions. Call us with comments or testimonials at 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1. It'll put a little question mark up by your phone number, and we'll have a conversation. So we have about 25 minutes left in this first hour. How can we support you today? What's a comment? What's a question? What's a point of clarification you would like to ask about what I've been talking about so far? Is it making sense? Is it seeming to ramble? 563-999-3581. Currently, I'm the only one in the chat room, and we have a variety of callers on the switchboard, so there is plenty of time for a conversation. If you're brave enough, Dr. Rice at this point usually likes to launch into some talk about, if you're nervous, just be willing to be nervous and press 1. And apparently, some people are holding back because of nervousness, in Dr. Rice's opinion. Whatever the reason, we will move forward with another topic unless somebody raises a hand to suggest a topic or ask a question about something we've talked about so far. One of the things I mention on a regular basis with this community is how I keep getting, is one of the benefits of being in this community, is that I keep getting suggestions from people. I get suggestions about all kinds of things. I get suggestions about book titles, videos. We were talking last week about Eben Alexander's lecture and his book, The Proof of Heaven, in which he had a near-death experience. Dr. Rice would call it a near-life experience. And that led to the Anita Morjani book, which is Dying to Be Me, which was published in 2012. And I've had several people since then mention to me that they were either just finding her work or they've read and reread that book several times over the past few years because she had very large cancerous tumors that had progressed way past the point where it was medically feasible to be treating them by the time she finally gave in and went to the hospital. And when she made it through that experience and she had her otherworldly experience and she decided to come back, it was made known to her that she will be healing, that all of those tumors will they will get healed. And so the medical evidence that was available for how large these tumors are, how much surgery that would have had to happen, and the scarring and all of that would have, it would have killed the normal human body and it would have left her irreparably scarred forever. All of that stuff that our medical science knew about has no way to explain what the end result was. And the end result was she was completely healed. And the foreword for that book is written by the late, great Wayne Dyer. And he was instrumental in helping her get that book published. So I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were saying, well, so what's the relevance? Why would a topic like that come up on a show like the Mind Shifters radio podcast, where you talk about the ancient Aramaic art of forgiveness? Well, the tie-in is because, as Dr. Rice was talking about in his 1 hour, the intro to the Why Is This Happening to Me Again 4-hour lecture last night, you're sitting there listening to this podcast in what you feel is a very solid physical body. And it's got a certain size and shape. You may or may not be pleased with it. It's got a certain comfort level. You may or may not be pleased with that. And yet, what our science, our best science tells us is that your body is just an energy system. And it's made up of molecules that are made up of atoms, and those atoms are 99.99% empty space. And what isn't empty space in your atoms is filled with energy packets. And those energy packets are often popping in and out of existence. So essentially, you're sitting in an energy system that only appears solid to you because of the very limited perceptual capabilities of your 5 senses. But the truth is, it's energy in motion. This system that you call your body, this thing that you call your body, is an energy field within energy fields within energy fields within energy fields. And as Dr. Rice was pointing out in his lecture last night, if I put energy into a system that doesn't belong there, it disrupts that system. If the system is disrupted long enough, it begins to dismantle the energy system, to disintegrate or unintegrate the system. This pertains to my thought energy. It pertains to the physical energy that we call food. It pertains to my emotional energy. All the different energies that are in my system are either in in one category. They add energy, they integrate, they build up, and they strengthen my system, or they disintegrate. They break down and dismantle my energy system. So, one way to talk about it is that the primary energy that is the system and gave rise to it and is meant to contain and extend is this energy of creation, this energy of love, this energy of compassion, allowance, flow, acceptance. And so everything other than that I downloaded when I was 1 year old or 8 years old or 29 years old, that fed conclusions in me that I was overwhelmed or not good enough or ugly or not smart or stupid, all of those energies are disintegrative. All of those thoughts, if I hold them long enough, disrupt the energy pattern that was intended to be there in my system, disrupt the energy pattern that I'm supposed to be in the flow of and extending to in my life to those that I love and to myself through myself. And if that pattern of energy is disrupted long enough, it begins to create discomfort and eventually dis-ease discomfort, and then eventually what we call physical dis-ease. And that could be arthritis, it could be kidney problems, it could be cancer. All of those things that we experience as a physical disruption begin as an energy pattern disruption. So it makes sense for us to say, when I learn how that system works, that I'm going to tap into my negative emotional states and catch them at the earliest possible time, and then step into the use of some of the tools that are available at whyagain.org to start dismantling the energies, to release the energies that don't belong in my system. And it may not be as otherworldly or overnight powerful dramatic as either Eben Alexander's story or Anita Moorjani's story. At the same time, I believe it is every bit as solid, every bit as real. I have seen it in my office. I've, on a regular basis, have people come in with a physical ache or a pain, and we engage in the energy work or the reality management worksheet process or some experiential emotional discovery, and they have a release, they see a connection, and they leave the office without the pain. And in some of the more dramatic cases, I've had people burst into tears because they had pain leave them in the middle of a session that they'd had for 12 years. Now, as Michael Rice would say, if you think that you're a body and it's a solid body, if you don't understand that you're an energy system, then that doesn't make any sense. You will actually convince yourself that that didn't even happen. And it won't be long before you might try and convince yourself that you didn't really have that pain, or that it didn't really go away, or wait, is it coming back? Because it's so outside of our experience or our way to understand it if we believe that we're a physical body having a physical experience on the planet. it's not an exaggeration to say that we routinely have people do worksheets in the support groups and have them be absolutely baffled by what they discover and by the power of the shift that they have. Because we've routinely had people that are sobbing and crying and can barely talk when they're beginning talking about the worksheet they want to do or the upset they have. And yet, at the end of the worksheet, just filling out the form with the 7 steps and taking time to breathe and reconnect with love and cancel their goal and tap into how it might be connected to previous events in their lives where they downloaded energies that don't belong there. They move from a level, 118 from a scale of 0 to 10. They're at 118 upset, and they move down to a level 1 or 0. Now, with loving support, with a coach who knows how to use the tool, and with their willingness, that kind of thing is possible on a regular basis. That's why we do this work. It's not quite as dramatic as having a near-death/near-life experience or having massive tumors disappear within days. And it's powerful and dramatic in its own right. So that's why we're here. That's why we're supporting people in making these tools available and being here to coach them on the radio show 5 days a week. So I'll take a breath and take a sip of water and ask if anybody has a comment or a question. Area code 563-999-3581. Press 1 and we'll have a conversation. We've got 10 minutes left. Area code 423, you're in the air.
Hi, Tim. This is Jack in Asheville in area 423 and 828 also. And I just want to give a testimonial and a admission. The testimonial is I did a mind shifter on something that I thought I couldn't do, and I found I could do it. It was something very simple, walking up a long flight of steps, maybe even carrying something without having to do it 1/2 step at a time. I did the targeted journaling and decided maybe I can do this. And if I'm at the bottom of a flight of steps and remember it, I can do it. If I don't remember it, I can't do it. Interesting. Now, here's the admission. I get little tips from listening to people every day that I can. I can't do it every day. And I won't be able to do the 2 hours a day. But anyway, what happens is I realize I have a resistance to doing a wake-up sheet on why I have resistance to doing wake-up sheets. So I'm making a commitment to myself and registering it with you that I'm going to try to do that sometime soon, and perhaps I'll do it online, on the call with you one day pretty soon. But meanwhile, the physical life of my physical body and my physical stuff is piling up on me, and I do have an appointment at 2 o'clock to learn something useful and maybe even want to pay for it. But meanwhile, I just want to thank you and Michael and particularly Jeannie for making this happen, and it's really changed my life a lot. And I also use the alarm system to say something's upsetting me, but I don't have to blow up about it, so I no longer have rage, and that's good. But I need to do the codependency and stuff with the one person who can upset me occasionally. Anyway, that's all I have to say, probably too much, and I'm going to mute now because I have to finish getting dressed so I can go out. Thank you so much for being you and doing it right here for us. Thank you.
Well, you're entirely welcome. Thank you. And it's nice to hear that the voice is actually going out over the airwaves. And I would be happy to support you if you choose to call back at another time and actually work through a worksheet. As we've talked about, that is the process that makes the highlight shows most often come from people who call in and say, okay, I'm stuck, can we do a worksheet? And I'll just mention, because it just popped into my head, that I also have a list of those highlight shows on the audio library tab at mindshiftersacademy.org. You can type in Mindshifters Academy or mindshifters-academy.org. And on the audio library tab on that website, it's pretty direct. You scroll down the list, and there are several shows and excerpts of shows there where people have called in and been stepped through a worksheet. And we encourage people to listen to those on a regular basis to build your own experience base about how you might approach a worksheet a little bit differently, or how you might approach one related to money, or related to fear, or related to anger, or related to guilt or shame. It's one of the tremendous benefits that I tap into on a regular basis is I go make use of the archives. I'll be replaying old shows or highlights from old shows as I do, housework or ride my bike, or, rather than reading at night, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll put one of those on. So you can get at the archives for the last 8.5 years by going to whyagain.org and clicking on the picture of the microphone. And you can get at some select highlight shows by going to mindshiftersacademy.org and click on the audio library page. There's also an archive of the recordings of our Thursday groups that have been going for not quite a year now, but most of the Thursdays since I think it was last November. They have a recording of the group interaction, the lectures, the comments, etc. And they're available for free. So we encourage people to go take advantage of it. And we also encourage people to let us know if they are taking advantage of it, if they find it useful, or if there's something in a different direction that they would find more useful. And that's why we ask people to call in at 563-999-3581 and press 1 and tell us, how is this fitting for you? How is this of use or not of use? Five, 563-999-3581. Press 1 and give us a comment or a question. We have 5 minutes left, or not quite 5 minutes, in this first hour, after which hopefully Michael and or Jeannie will join us and take over the second hour and be available to answer questions, work through worksheets, take on testimonials, talk about various topics. How can we support you? What would be of use? As I like to say over and over again, the intention for being here, the reason for spending all of this money and this time and energy is to step into the intention of being of service. So what would serve you for in this last 5 minutes? What would serve you? We had somebody having some rather deep insights, even though nobody did a worksheet in our group last night. We had at least 2 people say, I just got an insight. And that makes sense at a different level. And to my mind, that talks about the power of the sense of community. And I remember sitting in the group last night, almost moved to tears for the gratitude of the people who choose on a regular basis to show up and use these tools, to show up and learn more about these tools, and then ask questions about these tools. The quality of the people who have been stepping into this community is, in my opinion, off the charts good. Off the charts good. So I have deep gratitude for that, and for anybody at any level who chooses to step into the use of tools to make their life better. That's a thing that Course in Miracles tells us benefits everybody, because when you heal, you are never healed alone. And it also says in another level, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do here today. Way of Mastery says, every time you step into this true process of forgiveness, which is a completely internal process, every time you do that, you clear up the need for many years of life experience and difficulties. It's a highly efficient process to use the right, the powerful, the effective tool to do internal work for yourself. It pays huge dividends on an ongoing basis. So we're grateful to everybody who's here. And we're just at about the end of our first hour. So we'll be looking for Michael and or Jeannie to join us momentarily. And we'll encourage people to come back again tomorrow and Friday, because we're here 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, and we're here to be of service. So if you had a thought, a comment, or a question get stimulated in the show today, please make a note of it. Either email it to Jeannie at jeanie@yagain.org, or call in and let us know what the question is tomorrow or the next day or later today in this hour. The next hour coming up, and call in at 563-999-3581 and ask your comment, raise a question. So thank you all for being here, and soon we'll do a bit of a transition and launch the second hour. It'll be interesting to find out what Michael and Jeannie have on their plate. I'd like to remind people that we have a group tomorrow coming up from 6:30 to 9 Central Time. If you go to mindshiftersacademy.org website and look up the support groups tab, it will have the full information for how to join us, either live or through the archives. And we'd be happy to have you join us and do the same thing here. Suggest a topic, work through a worksheet, ask a question, and join the community. And join us in the process in this community of one process at a time, one step at a time, one worksheet at a time, improving my life experience moment to moment. Recognizing that if I'm in anger or fear or sadness, the very best use of that awareness, of that energy for me, is to turn the focus inside myself and figure out how I'm creating that negative emotion and step into the process of dismantling the false beliefs, the traumatic energies, the errant conclusions. So please try to remember that we come from love, we're made of love, we are love, and everything else is false. Jeannie, welcome.
Thank you. Have you already talked to the other 423 that's got their